should have drank some water first.
You want me to go get you?
No, I have some right here.
Okay,
I just
okay.
don't think I can fast enough.
He can get it for you.
No, it's right here. Grab it, Terry.
Yeah, get it for you.
Hurry up, hurry up. Yeah, I can do it. You got to take it
Can you?
off.
Yeah, take it.
The last minute.
It's all right.
Go. Perfect.
Good evening and welcome to Freedom is a Constant Struggle with your host, Kilu Nyasha, and at the controls is Andrew Montoya. We'll honor the birthday of our martyred hero, Hugo Lyons Antonio Pinel, born in Nicaragua on March 10th, 1944, to discuss his life of struggle and his assassination on August 12th, 2015. Ida McCrae is our guests are Ida McCrae, Keith Watley, and Terry Collins. Ida McCrae is the director of Families with a Future, a nonprofit organization that through donations provides classes that women and LGBTQ can use for their probation convictions. She also teaches as an adjunct professor at San Francisco City College and works with incarcerated women leaving prison. Ida is a role model of achievement for the formerly imprisoned, raising a consistent, powerful voice against unjust laws that negatively affect women and their families. Ida lived in Cuba for a number of years, witnessing what life can be like when government serves the best interests of women and children. Ida also helped me visit Hugo Pinel twice, once in Pelican Bay and the last time at Folsom. Terry Collins is the president of listener-sponsored KPOO Radio, 89.5 FM, San Francisco. He's one of the founders of this 42-year-old community radio station in the Fillmore District. He's a former Panther and a longtime activist, beginning with the student strikes at San Francisco State University in the struggle for quote-unquote third world history in the turbulent 60s. Those struggles initiated the Black and Ethnic Studies programs at State. Terry currently hosts a weekly program in the spirit of Joe Rudolph, Tuesday nights from 10 to 12 midnight. Joe Rudolph was the general manager of KPOO from 1979 until he joined the Ancestors in 2001. Terry also corresponded with Hugo Pinel, and some of his letters can be found on the website hugopinel.com. So Keith Watley was Hugo Pinel's lawyer till the end of his life. And he's the founder and managing attorney of Uncommon Law, a nonprofit prisoners' rights organization in Oakland. He has been advocating for the rights of prisoners and parolees in various capacities over the past 15 years. Or it's longer now, isn't it?
It's longer now.
How many years now?
I guess about almost 18 years now.
18 years, yeah. This is an old bio. He has represented thousands of prisoners in cases involving mental health care, gang validation, religious freedom, prison infirmaries, medical care, excessive force, parole consideration for lifers, visiting, and parole revocation. Welcome, all of you, to Freedom. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And as you know, well, first of all, we all loved Yogi, no doubt. And let me, I think it might be good to start with Yogi's voice so people can hear him. And we'll have some photos, and Andrew will show some photos while our viewers can listen to his voice and hear who he is, and then we'll talk about him. All right?
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay, we are live.
Okay.
In California was organized in 1967. Our central committee, the nucleus of the movement, better known as the Black Council, respectfully selected W.R. Nolan as our chairman, Howard Toll as our co-chairman, and George Jackson as our political leader. We saw the need for 3 leaders because our movement was, and it still is today, of cultural and political roots. For more details on our black movement, please read my statement on black unity, the black movement, and the formation of the new man. The reemergence of our Prison Black movement today is a connection to our national and international black liberation movement. We are one indivisible and insurgent force gaining momentum to practice ideas we believe are in demand for our unity, our progress, and our freedom. Our beloved comrade, brother, William Christmas once said, if the ideas of one individual can be explored to great extremes, think how far we can go on the combined ideas of the collective. Christmas is one of 3 blacks cut down by enemy forces at the Marine County Courthouse in August 7, 1970. We must communicate, share, and explore ideas which can give direction to our black world. We must not think only in terms of survival. We must prepare correctly to challenge our enemies and overthrow their power and bring an unmistakable freedom that black people and the oppressed humanity can appreciate and exercise. For centuries, we have known and felt the ill effects of the capitalist and colonialist and neo-colonialist powers, and today, in 1981, when the war against black people escalates, the question that looms high above our heads is, how together are we and what are we doing about our situation? We need the full cooperation of all progressive black people to build and build properly, or else our problems in the Ronald Reagan era will multiply. The U.S. administration grows more repressive, more dogmatic, more racist every day, and we are in great need of unity and organization. Organized to survive, organized to prepare, and organized to revolt. We are not easy to die, as many claim. We are easy to be killed, and that's much different than easy to die. We have always fought hard to survive, but often for the wrong causes and often for the wrong reasons. The minute we rely on the control of our enemies, we adopt their habits and mentalities, and that means division for us. We turn in every way but the right way, and that kills our mind, which also means killing the body. Let us try to live for unity, dedicated to building our nation, progress in our movement, and we can leave behind a clear road for others to follow. We have to become more realistic to all matters surrounding and penetrating our black nation. Progress has been made, but when comparing it to the progress the U.S. government has made to further repress us, our progress seems non-existent. We are not wanted in this country, and our frame of mind should be one that recognizes this fact, and therefore we must use the system and its functions to survive.
Is that it? Okay, so that's the first portion of a speech that he made at Folsom Prison. Can we get back on here?
This petition to be represented in
the speech he made in Folsom Prison in 1981. And apparently, although Hugo Pinel was kept in solitary confinement from about 1970 until July of 2014, which is like 46 years.
44 years.
44 years. But he was in solitary prior to that.
Yeah, he was transferred in 2014, beginning of 2014, out of Pelican Bay,
but he was still in.
Yeah, it wasn't until middle of late 2015, late July
Right, I had the
2015,
year wrong,
that
'cause
he
that-
actually was released from a shoe-like setting.
Right, because I think he was really 46 years in altogether in solitary.
I think it ended up being about 45, but it's,
45.
Yeah,
Okay, but that's still a long time.
way too long.
Way
for
too
sure,
long.
obviously.
And speaking of time in prison, I meant to talk about before we go get into our program about Yogi. I wanted to share with people the victory that we finally had with the Angola 3. And Albert Woodfox
Yes.
did 43 years in solitary and finally got out. I mean, for goodness sakes. And so we celebrate that. And I want to give a shout out to Marina Drummer.
Marina Drummer.
Because Marina Drummer spent 20
Yes.
years
Yes, she
working
did.
on that
Yeah.
case, and she
Yeah.
never gets any credit for the work that she does.
Yes, she does.
And
And
she's
she's
a
very
beautiful
humble, saying, "Oh,
sister.
well, thank you for being a part of it." Because I said,
Right.
"Good work." She said, "Oh no, it was you."
Yeah,
No.
she's the one
Thank you,
that got
Marina.
she got AI involved, Amnesty International,
and
all.
educated so many people
Yes,
about the Angola
yes.
3.
Right.
Yes, she did. Yes. And then, but we also have another victory. Russell Schultz won a lawsuit forcing a magistrate finally is going to produce the first, make him go to trial. So he would be the first trial for solitary confinement in the history of this country. So he was 22 years in solitary and filed a lawsuit that they finally won. And that was announced February 12th. And then one more thing, Sundiata Kohli,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I
was
know.
denied. Here's the brother who was on the New Jersey Turnpike with the Sada Shakur and Zaid Shakur. Zaid was killed. I knew Zaid. He was a beautiful brother. And he's still doing he's like 40 years in prison now. But he's filing a federal clemency, sentence reduction, and other decarceration projects. So go to his website, sundiataakoli.org, and check that out and see what you can do to help. I think that's all the housekeeping.
So, we're still fighting for Oscar Rivera. Yeah.
Oh,
and
Oscar
Leonard
Rivera,
Peltier.
yeah, he's still,
and Leonard
still
Peltier.
yeah, Leonard Peltier, so
Mutulu
many.
Shakur.
Mutulu Shakur,
Right.
so
Herman
many.
Bell.
Herman Bell, Jaleel Muntekin, yeah.
Romaine
there's-
Chip Fitzgerald.
There's a lot.
So many
still.
political prisoners.
Yeah,
So many.
almost too many to name here.
Right.
Yeah. So let's go to Ida first, and then we'll go to each of you and hear what you have to say about Hugo Pinel.
Well, first of all, I think I'd like to talk about when I was able to see him in Pelican Bay. And when I saw him, it's almost hard to describe in words. He was just so elevated in his spirit, and it was just so high,
Right.
you know. And I looked at him; it was just like a light, you know. And then I also looked at his skin from him being in a cage. And I think then it was like 39 years he'd been locked up. And you could almost see through his skin, because when the wind doesn't hit your face, your skin gets very thin, and I could see that.
Very pale.
Yeah, pale and skin, just very thin. But in it, he was moving left. You go like this, and you could hear the wind where he was just practicing
I know.
himself. And he told me, and then, you know, I have a few letters, and he said it was the spirits of those who have gone have entered me and keep me hopeful, keep me alive. You know, I'm just paraphrasing right now because I don't have his letters right in front of me. But he said, it's those who have gone before me that have and have helped keep his spirits up.
Right.
This was a man who was not broken. Él no fue rompieron en su espíritu ni ninguna manera. Y yo quiero decir a la mamá de él, gracias por dando luz a este hombre. I'm saying to Marina, thank you for giving birth to this man que fue un influencia, que fue un influence. And later on, when we go back, I have this a quote from a young person who didn't know them, because there's not a lot of people who they know about Yogi, but they didn't know Yogi, you know?
Right.
And the young person said, he said, from someone young who didn't know him, he said, it's interesting the lives that he touched without physically touching them. People who have been alive a lot less than he was. He was able to make an influence. We know he suffered a lot. He had a strong spirit, and he was not broken. And so many men, and this is a young person talking, and so many men in my life have already been broken, and they exited through drugs. It was such an inspiration to know that they had him all that time, and he wasn't broken. Todo ese tiempo que él estaba encarcelado, que ellos no pueden romper su espíritu. Y eso fue una cosa que es un milagro.
Right. Yeah, and I just have to comment that when the first time I saw him, he was sitting up on a shelf. We'd gone on to Christmas to make sure they let us in. And and he jumped up, and just like you described, he was just such high energy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I remember he would throw a jab, and you know I'm a martial arts fan.
Yeah, and he would go.
I had never seen anybody faster.
No, he was
the only person faster than that was Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I never seen anybody that fast either.
Yes,
you know,
he was just amazing. He was made high energy. He had an exercise program that just wouldn't quit.
Yeah, and it shows you his spirit. And the other thing I want to say, when I left there, I just had a feeling all over me that I've never felt before in my life. And I actually physically jumped in the ocean.
I remember that.
Yeah, I just, and it's cold.
It is cold.
Okay, it's cold up there.
Sure.
I know.
And after I left, I said, "Oh my God, I have the freedom. I have the wind in my face." And I just saw one and I just jumped in the ocean.
I know, I couldn't, so I cried all the way back.
Yeah. Thank you.
Keith, talk about how you met Yogi and how you came to represent him.
We started corresponding back in 2010, I think it was, and first I'd heard about him a little bit and started corresponding. I finally met him for the first time in early 2011, and at that point he'd been in solitary confinement for almost 41 years when I first laid eyes on him.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of people in the security housing unit and ADSEG and all kind of other variations of lockup units. And he immediately struck me with just sort of the energy and the fire you're talking about. And I said, I was expecting the worst because I've seen the worst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he was somebody else. He had an energy, he remained, intact mentally, physically, spiritually. He was ready to go. Yeah. It was just clear from the beginning. He was definitely pale. I definitely noticed that.
Yeah.
But he was much more invigorated and also deeply in touch with what's going on in the world.
Very deep. Mm-hmm.
Beyond the small box that they had him locked in.
Right.
In touch with the world and the people in it. Much more so than people I've seen, in the hole for weeks or months.
Right.
And you could see it was important to him, and it made a huge difference for the people that he touched outside of prison.
Right.
Big time.
You can see.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, people who never met him, people who heard about him or correspond. And he would correspond with anyone who would write to him if they come with a positive vibe. Mm-hmm. If they were looking for some guidance, and he was very willing to provide it.
Right.
Very willing to provide it.
Terry.
I never had the honor of meeting Hugo, but I remember about 2008 at the radio station, I got this letter from Hugo Cornell. I said, because my discipline is very bad about writing. So I said, when I got this letter, I said, I know I got to write Hugo Cornell. So I will develop some kind of discipline to be able to do this. So I got the letter, and so I began writing. And what happened was that he seemed to be more caring about me.
Yeah, that's what he is.
In other words, he worried about me.
Yes, that's what he does.
And I said, wow. I mean, so I talked to him about different things, about some of my different problems, and he'd coming back and say, look, whatever you got to include. For example, I told him about Chata Gutierrez, who was with the station so long, and I was messed up. So I told him I was broke by Chata, and he says, you got to include Chata with you and yourself. In other words, he made it that no matter what, all the energies and the people who you love and around, you bring them into you
Right.
to develop yourself.
Right.
I mean, and believe me, and when I was kind of late, I would apologize. Man, I'm sorry. I messed up. My disciplines got bad. And he said, "You ready? That's all right. I mean, that's all right." As long, you know, he was so forgiving and so. I mean,
Loving.
I'm loving. I mean, you talk about love.
Loving man, yeah.
I mean, I love him.
Yeah, that's Yogi. Well, I just have to share this. This is a letter that he wrote to you. No, this is one to me. I'm sorry. Was an excerpt of one that he wrote to you. In a recent letter to me, Yogi wrote about the passing of Marilyn Buck, and I thought I'd share that. I did receive your general letter with the photo of you surrounded by all those beautiful youngsters. In that letter, you also let it be known of Marilyn's passing. I'll never get used to death and dying, and when it happens to our freedom servants, I do mourn quietly and shortly. Then I celebrate their lives and times because I know that their freedom-free energies will live on. I thought I did this long and far enough away that I wouldn't get choked up, but I'm going to try to get through this. Then I celebrate their lives and times because I know that their free energies will live on in us and in the world. Also, I learned that in the way we live and keep growing reflect what their lives are all about, because they really are always with us. So it is all in the living. However, upon getting the news of Marilyn from you, I was jolted with so many emotions and I couldn't respond, so I shut down. The powerful and mixed emotions I felt when you let me know of Marilyn's passing, that I know how hard it is to maintain a clean bill of health in these max confined shoes, because you can't really get the health care and attention you warrant and deserve, even if regular checkups are kept by medical staff.
And that's so true, because I was incarcerated with Marilyn Buck, and Marilyn Buck, she was an honest, beautiful, and sincere woman. And in her beauty, I'm glad that she was able to help so many women, because she helped a lot of women inside. She would, we were like this inside, okay? And of course, she would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and help this young sister who got like 80 years learn to read. She never told me. And I just happened to get up one morning and saw her in the room helping the sister learn how to read. And I said, that's beautiful, because she never even said, so many neoliberals, like, I did this and I did this for somebody. Marilyn wasn't like that, She did something for her. She did it from her heart, and she didn't have to go bragging about what she did. I have another quote here that says that someone who knew Yogi said, the only stories I know is about Yogi is where he was defending himself against the police and the ABs. Can't talk about either one because they're together. And that's what someone said who did some time with him inside.
I came across, I had my helpers, and a shout out to Maya and Layla for helping me. Because I had so many letters that I had to get help to go through the file drawers, and then I had to clip them all together to make sure the pages weren't all, scattered. And then I had to, and I have a stack that's like this high. And they start off in 1973. There was a long period where we lost touch, and we got reconnected in 90 or 91. And so then I started reading them, and there's no way I could get finished through them before the program. Yeah. But I did come across a number of really important things that he had to say. And one of the things I wanted to clear up, since this is Women's History Month, and is that too many people have decided that they were going to change the conviction, the rape conviction, and blame it on a white woman or yelling rape. And I think that that's just wrong and wrong-headed, and we shouldn't do reactionary. We should always tell the truth. And I'm really object to it when people on the left lie. Because if we don't stand for truth, who's going to?
And then we have to
Okay.
remember.
Now, he was 19 years old and made a terrible mistake. And he has confessed it so many times in my letters. His remorse is so profound, you know, and you must know that, right? Because he's talked to you, Keith.
We talked quite a bit.
Quite a bit about that. He was very, very remorseful, and he changed. You want to talk about that?
Well, you know, one thing that I want to come back a little bit to. So we had a couple of, you know, I came on board to help him with the parole consideration process, to figure out how to deal with this parole board in a way to have them understand the truth about his case, the truth about him,
Right.
get to see who he really was, and get beyond all the nonsense that had been made up about him
Right.
over the years. So we had a hearing scheduled at Pelican Bay, and it was, we actually had, after I first met him, we had a couple of postponements, and finally we were going to have a hearing in October of 2013. And we went to that hearing, and at that point I'd been corresponding for about 3 years or so. So in that hearing, the room was not much bigger than this one, actually about the same size as this one. So I come in, he comes in, and you know, I put my hand out to shake his hand, and he hesitated. And you know, I sort of instinctively just sort of, you know, communicated to him that it's all right. It's all right. And we shook hands, we sat down, and then in that particular hearing, I let the state know that they had a lot of errors in his file about his case, what the controlling cases were, who should be in the room, which DA's offices should be represented, all these things that had been in the file that I picked apart and explained to them. They say, yeah, we don't really have a clue what's going on here. We need to postpone this hearing. Now, so we did that. They put off that hearing. That's why after that hearing, his next full hearing actually took place at New Folsom, not at Pelican Bay again. Because in that period of time, we knew he was about to come up for Departmental Review Board review, which would lead to him getting out of the Pelican Bay SHU. And that allowed him to be transferred to New Folsom, and ultimately through this step-down program that they have. But so after that hearing, after that postponement, I reflected on the fact that I was probably the first person to offer my hand to him in decades. He didn't know how to deal with it. Like, he welcomed it for sure, but it just struck him, I think. It surprised him that somebody was being human with him. Somebody wanting to put hands on him that wasn't trying to be aggressive with him, trying to direct him somewhere.
Wow, yeah.
Because that was the first time we'd ever shook hands.
Wow.
In the 3 years that I'd known him at that point. But it was just something that struck with me about, you know, how important it is to recognize, as in tune as he was with people on the outside, there still wasn't a connection yet, physically, and it took some time to do that. But there were a lot of errors in his case, a lot of misunderstandings about things that were attributed to him, things attributed to other people that people just assumed he was involved in. A lot of my work was helping to unpack that and give him, you know, a fair chance to be considered.
Right, right.
I think, and I don't know the legal particulars of it, but to me and to others, it seems like he was held for what happened. He was the cage one.
He was their
behind
trophy for
for-
August 21st, 1971, when George was assassinated.
Exactly.
And
And you're talking
3 guards were killed and 2 inmate turncoats, and they were mad as hell. And I know how mad they were because August 26th, I was in the courtroom when the police rioted. Yes, it was a police riot.
So again, it goes back, who holds a grudge that long? Those people who were accused of killing him, they were in their 30s. He's been locked up over 40-something years.
Yes.
So in that, it just shows you the inhumanity of California and the state and the government, because the king of tortures, to keep a person locked in a cage for 44 years?
52 in prison altogether. 52 years.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
It's a mistake to focus on these two guys who were being charged with, because one thing that Yogi was very clear about is he understood that he was in the middle of, like the 150,000 other prisoners, in the middle of a race-based, hate-based system that benefited from pitting the different groups against each other.
Absolutely.
He was very clear about it. He could see the game from a mile away,
Yes.
even though he was stuck in the middle of it. He also recognized that so many people just coming into the system had no idea. They would buy into these old lies and these old ways of being and the politics of prison, and those politics are what dictated this result, frankly. It had nothing to do with these individuals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. People who know that. In fact, one of the quotes that I got from somebody is, "There are not too many people left that knew Yogi, in or out of prison. People know about him, but they don't know him."
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I think we should let people hear him again. What do you say?
Go ahead.
Andrew. Andrew's going to treat us to some more Yogi Bear. Okay? And
We want to say happy birthday.
I love that
too.
picture of him.
I love all of them.
Yeah. And I guess we can say a few more words while he's...
And then the other thing about the power of him. About the power of him being for
Expression
Nicaragua.
to everyone that the black prisoner is the mainstream of our black struggle. And this far, only a few have really contributed to our black struggle. I appeal to the brothers and sisters out here to inspire those inside the walls to get involved in the important matters relating to the mistreatment of black prisoners. What I ask is perfectly legal and human. I am not asking prisoners to tear down anything or to jeopardize any good time. I am asking for black prisoners to improve and to organize so that we can be constructive forces to our black communities when released from prison.
Is that it?
People have a chance to say what I have to say, so that before the night is over with, everybody will have the opportunity to get across the points that they want to express to you tonight. We are progressive activists, and we embrace and support the national liberation struggle of all oppressed people the world over. Right here in the States, we encourage and support the movements of other oppressed people. We are not segregationists. This benefit was made possible thanks to black people, thanks to third world people, thanks to white people. And that's a good indication that people can work together. And tomorrow, if all the movements of people who believe in real change can come together, we can have a class struggle, a people's revolution. But people also know that our black people is being oppressed all over the world, and that's why we need a black movement in control of our own affairs. Because if for some unexplainable reason the people don't come together to fight a people's revolution, the black people, no matter what, will have to fight this imperialist system and its ruling class and any other oppressive force to gain our true freedom, our true justice, our true peace. That is the reality of our situation.
And that is so true right now, today. Okay?
Really?
Black Lives Matter, this, that, and the other. He's right
Prophetic.
there. And it's just
Appreciate
like listening to Malcolm X. So the things that he was saying is so true today.
So true.
And one of the quotes I have, too, that he didn't want to say a lot about it, he said, he was the people's revolutionary. Él fue un revolucionario del pueblo. He was the people's revolutionary.
Absolutely.
And in it, when you talk about we're not segregating, we're talking about here he is Latino, he's from Nicaragua, and he embraced the blacks. But this is tenemos que unir, and that's what he's saying. We have to unite. We have to unite
Exactly.
for our well-being.
Yes.
And a
Yeah.
person, you know,
And we're the majority now.
and
People of color, you know,
we need to
including
know
black people, brown people,
we need
yellow
to
people,
know
whatever.
that.
We're in the majority,
And we need to prove-
come together.
I can read something from
Go
a
ahead.
letter from December the 3rd,
What year?
2009. It says, when it says, talk about he was in Youth Authority institution of Preston. As soon as I was introduced to the L Company, I was approached by Mexican guys. The great majority of them were from Los Angeles. They had their unique way and style, and I said that I had to be with them. There was so much racial tension and violence in Preston, something I had experienced in San Francisco. In that company was a black brother from San Francisco whom I met in juvenile hall, and we got along okay. The blacks in juvenile hall and in log cabin, they never heard of Nicaragua, and I had trouble pronouncing it. Smile. So they called me the Puerto Rican brother, since I wasn't Mexican.
That's funny. But he wrote to me about that same thing, and he said, you know, there was a Mexican mafia back in the 60s. And,
Sure was, in the 70s
and they
too.
were very racist against the blacks. And so they tried to get him to come to the Mexican
side.
and Latino side. And he was willing to hang with them, but when they told him he could not hang with the blacks, he said,
hell no.
forget you, you know. And I'm sure he had different language, but anyway, bottom line is he stayed with the blacks.
He had a vision, and the vision is that we're not each other's enemy. And
Exactly,
usually, the system, when they have people, and I've heard this story several times from several people, when you have one who builds up their consciousness, they isolate them because they don't want the consciousness to be raised among the other people. Now,
Right.
these are the other people who are really in the same position that they are. It's just that they have jobs and go home every now and then and come back. But the movement is about raising our own humanity, our dignity, and respect in the world. And when they don't have that consciencia, they don't have that consciousness, they have to isolate them because there's such an influence. So there's other reason
yes,
I believe that he
absolutely.
stayed. But one thing I want to say that he wrote in the letter, he said, take care of my big sister Kilo. He loved you.
I know, don't get me crying again.
Okay. Yeah, but he said, take care, Kilo.
I'm missing him so much.
Okay.
Let me share one more thing to talk about how he redeemed himself. I began to study hard in getting myself together in 1967. It should have been released in 1968, but they have come down brutally hard on me for 42 of the 45 plus years for taking control of my mind, just what you were just saying, my life, and for living on our freedom road. So 42 years for wanting to be free. It's a horrible ordeal to experience, but you and I know who we're dealing with. In the 1960s, we used to refer to these oppressors as the man, remember? The man this, the man that. Oh, my brother, the horrors they were committing then. But that man has become a full-grown monster and growing worse by the day, and the horrors against humanity are so excruciatingly painful that my situation seems so minimal. If it weren't for the fact that every life is precious and it counts, my situation would be almost non-existent. For I understand that I've taken great care of myself to deal with Dracula. That's why I don't complain, Terry, nor bother anyone. I'll continue to resist, to keep on pushing, evolving, and transcending.
That's what he always said, evolving.
Yeah,
And I
transcending.
remember him calling it Dracula. Right.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Malcolm said, you show me a capitalist, I'll show you a bloodsucker. And that's what Dracula is, right?
You know, it reminds me of Mumia because it wasn't about me, and the horrific things that happened to him from what people said who were there in prison with him when he went out to court, how he was abused, how he was misused in the most horrific ways. But yet, even though these things happened to him, he was still able to keep his eye on humanity and other human beings in unity. That's
Exactly.
huge.
Yeah, it is.
You know, like Hugo Pennell was already free. He just was not with us, but he was already free.
Right. Yeah, he said that to me one time. He told me to stop saying free,
Yeah.
Hugo Pinel. He said, they can release me, but I'm already free. And he's free now, for sure. Free of all the tortures.
So we want to say happy birthday,
birthday.
to you.
Happy
Happy birthday, March 10th.
And we have one more clip from him. Are you ready with it?
In fact,
Oh, let's hear one more
he
clip.
sent me birthday cards. I didn't even remember my own birthday. He sent me 10 birthday cards. I didn't even remember. I said, man, how you know my birthday? He said, I know your birthday. He sent me birthday
I
cards.
know. I
10.
birthdays will never be the same for me because he never missed one.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Lawyers. Now that Spain will be retried, Pinell has also started the legal proceedings for a new trial. The Spain conviction was overturned after a secret meeting between the judge and a juror was discovered. For now, Pinell says he is trying to stay alive and trying to live down his notorious reputation.
I want to believe that if I ever come out of prison, that I can be a constructive element to my community. You see, but if I react at any particular time, I feel that they will have won the game that they want to play, because either way, I'm doomed, you see. If they kill me, they succeeded. If I react, they succeeded in trying to prove to the public that I am, what they say that I am supposed to be.
You just heard the audio of a televised interview with Hugo Lyons and Antonio Pinell, nicknamed Yogi Bear, in 1983. And, of course, you heard them portraying him as the most dangerous prisoner in California, which on its face is absurd. Having been in communication with Yogi since 1973, I know him to be a true people's leader, loving and strong. Although he was scheduled for a board hearing last April, it has yet to occur because of a parole hearing backlog. Recently, 900 prisoners in the lockups of Pelican Bay and Corcoran State Prison went on hunger strike in protest of these draconian prison conditions, which are, incidentally, in complete violation of the international minimum standards for the treatment of prisoners.
The racial thing continues, the racial power, the racial domination continues. So it's not just economic where they're messing over the poor and everything, it's still racial. The poor Mexicans are going to get, the poor blacks are going to get the worst than the poor white, even though poor white, they're in the same mercy of the merciless butcher. And so I've learned a lot through people who love me, how to be able to love different kind of people. Because at one time I was just like a nationalist. I just wanted to be this great nationalist where I just wanted to be black people and brown people, you see? That's me. When you look at my face, even if you don't see the black in me, it's there. And if you don't see it there, or if you can't find it nowhere, it's in the heart, because black people raised me and brown people raised me too, because my mother and my grandmother, you see, they're there.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
so
thank you so much, Andrew, for that. And yes, that was Yogi. And Ida, you have another excerpt.
Yeah, I'd like to read an insert from him. I remember in the 70s when a few brothers were released back to the streets. Many of them I knew personally, and I was happy for them for many reasons, and because I knew they were going to be pushing the struggle. As time went by, we started hearing about how most of these brothers were doing everything but the right and principled thing. I remember Qatari being very upset and hurt. So was I, but I had to remind him that the struggle was a voluntary and a conscientious one from the heart and the commitment. I remember receiving a card from one of those brothers, which he said that he felt bad for engaging in confusion, chaos, and activities contradictory to the ways of the struggle, that he was badly influenced by other brothers when he thought he was righteously together, that he and others felt bad for letting us down, for betraying the people and misrepresenting the people who had put them on the freedom road. I shared that card with Qatari to point out how confused or something, ? We can be about one's liberation struggle. I get upset, and then I get over it, because my love for those brothers wouldn't change.
That's what I wanted you to share.
Yeah, and in that
finish that paragraph.
They remain my people, our people. So I have to understand and move on, because they just didn't get it, didn't feel it. They didn't betray or misrepresent anyone. They betrayed and misrepresented themselves because they forgot about themselves. And you can't forget about yourself, because whether in a crowd or alone, if you are true to yourself, to what's in your heart, you're going to be true to our people and to our struggle.
Right on.
Ashe.
Somebody,
Right there.
somebody said, "To
Right
thine
there.
own self be true."
To thine, yeah,
Right?
and there
there
it is. And I have to say today, we have so many places and programs and things, but we do have so few men for our young people to model what manhood is.
Locked them all up.
But
One in
they're
3
all
black
not
men.
gone. Yeah, I understand that. And I understand the single mothers who can't teach them how to be men. And the few men we have, and I've seen you step up. I have a lot of love for you, because you didn't talk about it. I've seen you confront and be courageous and show what true manhood is. And in that, we need to continue to find the courage to reach out and deepen themselves so that they can be men.
Each one teach one.
Mentoring
and looking after our neighbors, our kids,
and not take advantage of people, and knowing what that means, and if not, finding out what it means. But number one, you have to go inside and find, number one, love of self first. You love yourself, and then when you love yourself, I can put my arms around Keith. I can put my arms around other people, because I know what love is. Love is not harming.
Keith, I wanted, before we run out of time, I wanted to talk about the repeated denials and how frustrating that is to a prisoner.
Yeah, well, the nature of the parole consideration process is such that you have a panel of parole commissioners, mostly retired law enforcement people who spent their careers locking people up.
Right.
And keeping them locked up.
Yes.
And now they're sitting across the table from someone that can only get out of prison if they feel comfortable letting that happen. And so many people related to Yogi through the paper, through his file, through what they heard about him, that it was difficult for them to see him for who he really was. And I think I guess the promise of this process is that people who've done the worst to earn their way into prison, we have a system that recognizes there's the possibility to rehabilitate yourself, to redeem yourself, and this process is supposed to recognize that. And a lot of our challenge was getting them to say, okay, stop talking about stuff from the past. This band hadn't been written up since 1984 for anything.
Wow. And
here we are in 2014 and 15, and they're still relating to everything that happened before that. You don't have anything new to talk about.
I know.
So a lot of the challenge was to get them to start to recognize, okay, you've got a lot of things that you can focus on that show who he is today. The 2 hearings ago, in the beginning of 2009, he went to the parole board and got a 15-year denial. They said, we find you unsuitable for parole because you're still dangerous, and we think you're going to be dangerous for 15 more years. Because there was a new law that took effect in November of 2008 that allowed them to put off hearings for that long. We did some things in court. This was before I had met him in person. But we saw that. We did some things in court that got that knocked down. So he was eligible for reconsideration much earlier. But even then, we had to get them to stop focusing on the past. Reminded them that the law requires they focus on who he is now. And he, to me, still remains, the epitome of transformation. And my job was to help them see that. And I think we did that. We didn't get as far as we wanted to. We needed at least one more hearing to get there.
Right.
We didn't get a chance to do that.
Well, I'm sorry, but I really think that there was a conspiracy by the administration to I think from the time they took him out of the Pelican Bay SHU, to the transfer to Folsom, and then ultimately to Folsom's Yard, on information and belief, I think that they conspired to kill him.
But the responsibility for your body, once you are a ward of the state, and I know this from being in juvenile, and your ward of the state is to protect.
Right.
They've never had anybody in solitary confinement for that amount of time. And to let that man loose, and it's just like it's just phenomenal, from where he come from in a literal cage, and to be let out on a yard.
Yeah, I think he handled it well, but I mean, Yogi expressed his fears to me in a letter, and he said that he was nervous about going on to Yard and Folsom because he had enemies, and so I came back to him and I said, well, by now they're probably too old, and they probably didn't keep themselves in good shape, or they're either dead or they're released from prison or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently his reputation was such that the Aryans and the racists, because he was attacked by racists and stabbed to death by a couple of racists, and they claimed that there was a riot. It was part of no, there was no riot. The brothers moved to protect him, but it was too late by the time they jumped in, and then it became a melee, from what I understand. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
Well, what I would say is that that this murder didn't happen because the people who were involved hated him. It happened because of politics, prison politics, that dictated that these people had to do this or face other consequences.
I see. Yeah.
And within that, this happened.
Exactly.
And was inevitable.
Thank you, Ida McCrae, Keith Watley of Uncommon Law, and Terry Collins of KPOO. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in to Freedom, and thank Andrew Montoya, and we'll see you on March 17th.
All right.
All power to the people.
He was an icon. Era un hombre icónico.
Long live the spirit, the revolutionary spirit of Hugo Yogi Bear Pinal.
And happy birthday.
And happy
March
birthday.
10th. March 10th. Happy birthday.